Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osenberg501 and today I want to go over an upcoming survival MMO called Dune Awakening. Now, Dune Awakening is an open world survival MMO set in the Dune universe being developed by Funcom. And we have actually known of this game's existence since 2019, but it was only just recently officially revealed where we got some additional information on the game and a pretty cool looking cinematic trailer. Now, before we get into more information about this game, I want to go over a little bit of history with Funcom because they actually have a pretty long history in developing MMOs and survival games. And they've developed 3 MMOs in the past, starting with Anarchy Online in June 2001. Then they released Age of Conan in 2008. Then they released Secret World back in 2012, which makes up the 3 MMOs that they have released. And most recently, they've dipped their foot into survival games with Conan Exiles, which was released into early access in 2019 and then fully released in 2018. And Conan Exiles has actually been a pretty successful game over time. It had a pretty rough early life, but has since gone on to have really good reviews on Steam, has a pretty consistent player base, and is even releasing their big 3.0 patch on September 1st, so probably before this video is actually released. Now, their 3 MMOs all had a decent amount of success, but none of them really kept that success. Their MMOs were generally decently reviewed, but they really couldn't keep their player bases. But this is actually something that they have gotten much better with Conan Exiles as being a more live service type of game. They have continuously released new content for this and kept their decently sized player base somewhat happy. And that brings us to their newest reveal, Dune Awakening, which seems to be them combining a lot of their experience from MMOs and survival games together to make this new open world survival MMO. And we did actually get a bit of information explaining some of the information for the game. So first, a general description on Steam is a rise from survival to dominance in a vast and seamless Arrakis shared by thousands of players. Dune Awakening combines the grit and creativity of survival games with the social interactivity of large, persistent multiplayer games to create a unique and ambitious open world survival MMO. Now, I think the most important part of that description is shared by thousands of players, which kind of removes the sentiment that this was just going to be a slightly larger version of Conan Exiles, because this is going from Conan where on the high end you would probably have 100 people on one server to having thousands of people in the same shared world. Now, we also get some additional bullet points that are going over some more general gameplay features and mechanics we can expect from this game. So survive the most dangerous planet in the universe. Build shelters against sandstorms, maintain your still suit, and master the old ways to walk even the deepest deserts. Avoid or be devoured by the colossal sandworms that dwell beneath the sands. Now, if you're somebody that knows about the Dune universe, has read the books, watched the movies, a lot of the stuff is going to be pretty familiar to you. It does seem like they are trying to stick to a lot of the lore and stick to a lot of the core philosophy and tenets of this universe. So building shelters, obviously a pretty big mainstay in survival games, building up bases, building up shelters to survive different things. Obviously on Arrakis in the Dune universe, massive sandstorms would have to be added in there, and they do fit pretty well into a survival game. Maintaining your still suits, which are essentially suits that will help you survive on this planet. And it seems like this is probably going to be a big part of the gameplay, and I would almost fully expect that you would be upgrading these still suits to do additional things in the game, because I'm pretty sure these suits in the Dune universe are also the suits that catch any moisture off your body and reuse it into drinking water into the suit itself. So it's a pretty big mechanic that stays very true to this IP. And also, these colossal sandworms are a major piece of the Dune universe and something that you also get to see in the cinematic reveal trailer. And also, these sandworms, I'm wondering if these are going to be just an unkillable hazard in the world itself, or at some point are you going to be able to kill these maybe. I'm not sure how they're going to go with that, but that is something that I could fully seeing them allowing you to at some point, maybe in the end game, you'll be able to actually build up enough resources or technology to be able to attempt to kill these sandworms, which could be a pretty cool thing for the later stages of the game. Explore the ever-changing face of Arrakis. Walk the ruins of long forgotten biological testing stations, scavenge the wreckage of fallen spaceships, and wander the dusty halls of abandoned sieges. Head into unmapped sectors and be the first to discover secrets and riches before the Coriolis storms once again shift the sands and alter the landscape. So a few bits of information we can glean from this is there will probably be a decent amount of exploration. They actually did this pretty well in Conan Exiles, having all these places to go explore and big structures kind of right around a corner that you wouldn't expect with big creatures in them. So they did a good job with that in that game, and I would expect the Dune universe to pump that up quite a bit more. But the most interesting part about this is these Coriolis storms shifting the sands to alter the landscape. Now there's a few ways I could go about this. This could just be a kind of way to explain future updates into the game, but I honestly don't think that's the way they're going about it. I would more assume that this is going to be something that kind of shifts the game on a more regular basis, maybe daily, maybe weekly, stuff like that, and could be a pretty good way to have more live events being in the world. So maybe a big sandstorm comes in this day and it completely alters the areas you can go to and explore. Maybe when the game launches, there's a bunch of areas that you actually can't get to, you can't explore, maybe you can't get resources from there, and then maybe a few weeks, maybe a month down the road, one of these storms comes through and unearths some new content that you weren't able to reach before. Maybe there's new bosses, new resources, maybe some new story to go see or something like that, and that could potentially be a very good way to keep the world feeling alive, feeling like an actual world that you're just a part of, while also adding in a lot of variation on content. Control the spice, control Arrakis. Hunt for spice blows and deploy your harvester, then protect it from opportunistic raiders and rival factions. Soak the sand in blood as massive battles shift seamlessly from foot to vehicles and from ground to ornithopters in the sky. Now I have seen some other people talking about this information, and some people having the sentiment that this could be too ambitious, but honestly at a ground level I don't think there's a massive difference comparing this to say Ark Survival Evolved, where you could go from on the ground shooting someone with a gun to jumping on a T-Rex ground mount to jumping on a flying mount and flying around, or even putting on a jetpack and flying around. I think people are thinking a little bit too much of what this is actually entailing, but it is cool that they are mentioning that we are actually going to be able to be in these vehicles, flying them around and doing combat with them. And the obvious big part about this section is that spice is going to be a big part of the game, and you are going to be having harvesters to go harvest the spice, which obviously is a pretty big part of the Dune universe and the IP itself, but also this being a mechanic in the game can definitely make for some really good experiences, especially it being a survival MMO. Maybe you have this big harvester and you find a place to go harvest the spice from, which sounds like it'll probably be like a main currency in the game maybe, and you deploy this and maybe hordes of AI come to try to attack you, to steal it from you, you have to defend it, and then any other players can also just come and attack you to try to steal that from you as well, which could definitely be a really good way to add more gameplay into general harvesting of resources. Make plans within plans. Make a name for yourself among the inhabitants of Arrakis. Wield intrigue and force to influence the Lancerod and impact the world. Build your own faction through spice harvesting, trade, subterfuge, and open conflict. And I'm wondering if this is kind of hinting at reputation systems being in the game, because obviously other players could be considered other factions that would be a massive part of the game, but this is sounding a little bit more like it's mentioning other AI factions or systems in the game, which would fit in with it being an MMO, and you being able to build up your faction through harvesting the spice, through trading resources, and then obviously open conflict. So we'll have to wait and see on how that all plays out. And then finally, awaken the sleeper. Tailor every aspect of your character, consume spice to conquer your senses, and acquire powerful abilities. Hone your craft to become sought out for the finest creations, construct your fortress in the style of your choosing. The journey is yours to shape. So this last part gives us a lot of information. So first off, tailoring every aspect aspect of your character. Hopefully this means there's going to be a lot of character customization and a lot of potential build crafting or creating your character to play the way you want to play. This game is also going to be an RPG. That is one of the genres that it is labeled as, even though they're not labeling it as an MMORPG. I'm not sure if that's meaning that there's not going to be a ton of RPG elements or if that's just the way they're going about marketing it. But then also consume spice to conquer your senses and acquire powerful abilities. This is actually a big part of the Dune universe as well. Spice is pretty much the most valuable thing in the entirety of the Dune universe, and it has a lot of different things it can do, from being very important to traveling out in space to being used by individual people to enhance themselves in a ton of different ways. Now, it does sound like spice is going to be somewhat of a main currency in the game, but now it is also going to be some way of how you acquire powerful abilities in the game. So I'm wondering if there's kind of two different forms of this, or maybe you harvest kind of base spice and then have to do something else with it to unlock different abilities for yourself. But it does seem like spice is going to be very important in a handful of different ways. Then hone your craft to be sought out for the finest creations. And this is, I think, something that has been coming back around as something very important for MMOs, having crafting being a main tenet of the game. With all of its issues, New World actually did do a pretty good job of having crafting being a very important part of the game. World of Warcraft is even rebuilding its crafting to make it a very important endgame system, and I think survival games have always done it extremely well, because pretty much everything you get, or 99% of stuff you're getting, is all crafted. You're crafting most of your armor, most of your weapons, you're usually crafting the entirety of the pieces of your bases, you're crafting all your food, you're crafting potions, all this other type of stuff, and having systems around crafting and crafting being very important is always going to be a good thing in an MMO. And they do mention crafting your fortress in any style you want. And this is one thing I did really want to talk about, because going from a just normal survival game like Conan Exiles, where you may have 100 people on one open world server, going to this game, which is set to have thousands of people in the same world, there's obviously going to be some things you can't do. Like, I don't think Dune Awakening is going to allow completely free building like you would have in Conan Exiles or Ark Survival Evolved or Rust. I don't think that is something that is actually feasible. If you're having thousands of people in a massive open world, I don't think with that many people you would be able to have just open free building. And I'm honestly not sure how they're going to go about this, because also in a lot of survival games, raiding, attacking other people's bases is a pretty important thing. So I'm not exactly sure how they're going to go about this. I know probably for a fact it's not going to be full open building like I said before, and my best guess would probably be you have to claim like certain plots of land, and then you build your base in that specific area, and then people are still able to attack or raid each other bases, probably at specific times. Having this many people, I would suspect that they don't want people being able to raid each other anytime they want, maybe only a certain amount of period throughout a day. And this is one of the things I'm most interested in seeing how they're going to go about doing this. But that's pretty much all the information we have for Dune Awakening, and I am very excited for this game. And if they can take a lot of the experience they have gained from creating Conan Exiles and the MMOs that they have in the past and start this game as a lot more polished and experienced game, I think it could be a pretty incredible game. The concept's obviously incredible. The Dune universe is incredibly popular and well made and has inspired so many other fantasy and sci-fi IPs over the years, and this mix of MMO and survival game, if done right, could make for a very replayable game. I think survival games can be some of the most addicting and replayable games out there when done right, and I would also say that about the best MMOs in the MMO genre. But that's pretty much all I want to go over, so subscribe if you want to see more Dune Awakening or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this upcoming survival game, and thanks for watching.